Flight MH370 ended in the southern Indian Ocean.
Madam Speaker, we mourn all those 239 passengers and crew.
There are no words which can ease that pain.
People want answers to what's happened. Everyone's going to want closure.
This is still an attempt to search a very large area. This has a long way to go yet.
3 weeks after the disappearance of flight MH370 and locating the missing aircraft finally appears to be a step nearer. Officials have shifted the search area after receiving new information, but there's been no recovery of debris or the plane's black box flight recorder. In this programme, we look at the search operation and whether the unanswered questions of the Malaysian Airlines flight can still be answered. The Boeing 777 disappeared after leaving Kuala Lumpur bound for Beijing on March the 8th. 239 people were on board. The hunt for the missing plane has become one of the largest and most complex in air aviation history. And for the families waiting for information, it has been a tortuous 3 weeks.
The new information is based on continuing analysis of radar data about the aircraft's movement between the South China Sea and the Strait of Malacca before radar contact was lost. This continuing analysis indicates the plane was travelling faster than was previously estimated, resulting in increased fuel usage and reducing the possible distance it travelled south into the Indian Ocean. The international investigative team supporting the search continues their analysis of the data. This could result in further refinement of the potential flight path of MH370.
Radar data suggests the plane flew faster than investigators first thought when it was between the South China Sea and the Malacca Strait, meaning it burnt more fuel, reducing the distance it could have travelled south. To account for that, the search has been moved 685 miles northeast of the previous search areas. The area covers around 198,000 square miles. The new search area is more favourable with weather conditions, around 1,100 miles from Perth, closer than the original areas by about 400 miles, meaning planes use less fuel getting there and can search for longer.
We will certainly get better time on scene. We started nearly 3,000 kilometres from Perth, so we've taken quite a lot off that. And now we will get, you might recall we were talking in terms of 1 to 2 hours on scene. We're now doing much better than that. And the other benefit we get from moving further north is the search area has moved out of the roaring 40s, which creates very adverse weather frequently. I'm not sure that we'll get perfect weather out there, but it's likely to be better more often than we've seen in the past. And we will see what that does in terms of satellite imagery when the retasking of satellites starts to produce new material as well.
An international flotilla of ships and planes have been scouring the southern Indian Ocean. Now their efforts are being refocused with objects already spotted in the new search area. It's not clear whether this is the first evidence of debris from the plane, but as David Bowden explains, the new search area has put the investigation on a new course.
Let's just remind ourselves, the plane, of course, took off from Kuala Lumpur 3 weeks ago, and we know it pretty quickly turned to the west and then moved down because we had radar, and it now looks as though some other radar is telling us why it's gone down where we now think it has done. What's happened?
Right, so the plane takes off and the primary military radar in the area picks up the object. It can tell how high it flies, how quickly, and in which direction, which is data they use right now. Then we got the Inmarsat satellite pings, which allow us to estimate the flying route, and we know now it's gone south. Putting this data together with the fuel consumption of this typical Boeing, they figured out it's probably gone down further north than they had estimated before.
OK, so that's how we got to the new search areas. Chris, let's come to you. Tell us where the first one was, some 1,500 miles or so to the southwest of Perth, and now where the new one is, 700 miles or so northeast of that, and what the significance is of moving from pretty much close to the Antarctic to the coast of Australia.
Well, the reason why the first one was chosen was because satellite photography showed lots of objects floating there, so that's the first place you would look on that basis. It's moved because the data which Misha has described led people to think that the plane had come down further north in this area here. That, of course, is the area where we think the plane came down. Now, because of the currents and the winds and the time, debris from the plane coming down there could well have drifted as far south as this in the intervening...
Both these areas could, in fact, be the right search areas
for different things. Yes,
OK,
they are
let's
connected.
just talk a little bit about the depth here, because that changes as well, doesn't it? I mean, the depth of the ocean in the original search area was all the way down to something like 8,000 metres, way, way down, though we thought perhaps the plane was probably 3,500, 4,000 metres. As we move to the new area, that all comes up. It's only 2 kilometres down. It's still a long way, but it's a complete game changer, isn't it, Chris, to try and actually find something at that depth?
Yes, because the crucial fact is that the black box, you'll be able to pick it up down to about 6 kilometres, and certainly at 2 kilometres, it's the search area straddles a feature called the Broken Plateau, which is kind of a ridge. So the plane, if it is down there, it may well have come to rest on top of that plateau. And that search area actually straddles the plateau just west of another feature called the East Indiaman Ridge, which goes away to the north.
So we're assuming here, gentlemen, that they've moved the search here because we think that's where the plane actually went into the water, and that's probably where the black box is.
That's right, because the black box is going to be very heavy and is almost certainly going to sink.
Until now, investigators have only had satellite images of potential debris in the sea, hundreds of tiny dots and a vast expanse of ocean to scour. At the Pearce Air Base in Perth, Western Australia, where the search is being coordinated, new equipment and personnel are arriving. Sky's James Matthews is with the teams hoping to find answers for the families of MH370's ill-fated passengers.
Here at the Pearce Air Base, from where the planes are leaving to search the Indian Ocean, I think the atmosphere has inevitably changed. In the beginning, people believed in the data, I think, and I think there was a natural expectation that there may well be a quick result. But as time has grown, so has the awareness that this may well be a long-haul operation. It changed the mood drastically, I think, today, and certainly the sense of anticipation when the search zone was shifted no less than 700 miles. I think everybody got a sense then that there is a large degree of feeling in the dark on this particular operation.
The search for missing MH370 appears to be making progress, but experts are warning they still have a mountain to climb to put together all the pieces of the jigsaw in this mystery.
This is still an attempt to search a very large area, and for surface debris, which will give us an indication of where the main aircraft wreckage is likely to be. This has a long way to go yet.
In part 2, we examine why it's taken this long to close in on the wreckage of missing flight MH370 and why lessons within the industry simply haven't been learnt.
Flight MH370 ended in the southern Indian Ocean.
Madam Speaker, we mourn all those 239 passengers and crew.
There are no words which can ease that pain.
People want answers to what's happened. Everyone's going to want closure.
This is still an attempt to search a very large area. This has a long way to go yet.
New calculations suggest flight MH370 was travelling faster than first thought, meaning it ran out of fuel earlier. That's shifted the search almost 700 miles northeast, closer to the Australian coast. But why wasn't the plane carrying specialist equipment, making it easier to track? Sky News has been examining documents drawn up after an Air France airliner came down in the Atlantic in 2009. There were several recommendations for the airline industry, including extending black box battery life. But many airlines, including Malaysian, haven't put them into practice.
Instead of 30 days, let's make them 90 days. And that is practical. Actually, this document, which was printed in 2010, said that general installations of 90-day batteries, which are feasible, they can be made, they are being made, should start from 2011.
Changing the frequency the black box transmits at would also help the search for a missing plane.
They're set at 37.5 kilohertz, and the listening devices, the receivers, are tuned exactly to that frequency. The problem with that frequency is only gives you a range, effective range, listening range, detectable range of probably about less than 2,000 meters. On Air France, that was calculated precisely to be 1,760 meters. If you reduce that frequency, the lower the frequency, the greater the range. You go from 37.5 kilohertz to say 8.8 kilohertz, that was recommended. I think that would increase the range to probably over 10,000 meters. So that's a 5 times increase in your detectable range.
There were other simple, cheap and effective changes recommended 4 years ago.
Continuous transmission of the basic airplane parameters. This is through ACARS, for example. So second by second, we know all the data about that plane, including its position. Triggered transmission of the flight data. Say there's a catastrophic incident. It's like pushing a mayday on ships. Ships have mayday buttons, literally. If you have a problem and all you can do in 1 second is not even pick up your radio, but push a button, that sends out a signal that that ship's in trouble. You could also do the same thing either with a button or automatically with an aircraft. And then finally, deployable recorders. These cockpit voice recorders and flight data recorders are now sitting at the bottom of the ocean, 3,000, 4,000 meters deep. What if, when the plane crashed, they separated from the aircraft and floated and then could be recovered? Sadly, you see how slow things happen, because on this Malaysian plane, none of these things have been implemented.
Investigators have only 10 days before the black box's battery dies. The search is a highly specialised, skilled operation. Sky's Amanda Walker has more on the underwater technology that will be deployed.
If anything can find Flight MH370's black box, it's this. A state-of-the-art hydrophone deployed with the US Navy to help solve the agonising mystery. This is the crucial noise that everyone wants it to detect. The pings emitted by a black box.
We are very optimistic that the equipment can do the work. It just depends on how much time we have to do it. Bad weather makes the operation go much, much longer. The depths should not be a problem here. The topography should not be a problem.
It can track the pings made by a data recorder from up to around 4 miles underwater. Flight MH370's pings are expected to fall silent in around 2 weeks' time.
The pinger has approximately a 30-day battery life. It's like if you have a flashlight and you keep it on, it'll slowly get dimmer and dimmer until it won't come on anymore. It's the same with the pinger.
But if time does run out, all might not be lost. Phoenix International assisted with the recovery effort of the Air France plane that went down in the Atlantic 5 years ago. The black box ping was never heard, but this equipment helped them find it anyway.
This remotely operated vehicle can function up to 4 miles down. It's equipped with lights, sonar and cameras, and it's those arms that would ultimately recover a black box.
But no one is doubting the mammoth scale of this task. The authorities know how many hopes are pinned to this technology and the chance that it could lead to at least some answers that so many are so desperately seeking.
The question of why the aircraft went down is still unanswered and may prove as challenging as the search. Early suspicion fell on the flight's captain, 53-year-old Zachary Ahmed Shah. He was an experienced pilot with more than 18,500 flying hours under his belt. The first officer was Farik Abdul Hamid. He's 27 years old and joined Malaysia Airlines in 2007. He was fairly new to this model of aircraft, a Boeing 777-200. CCTV shows the two men going through security on their way to board the flight that evening. We are told they did not specifically request to fly together. It's not even known if they knew each other. Police have searched their homes, talking to friends and neighbours. They found this simulator in Captain Zachary's house. Investigators say that some data on it had been deleted. Attention then turned from the pilots to the passengers. Could the flight manifest hold answers? Investigators are scrutinising every name on it. 3 weeks after the plane's disappearance, and we're learning more about the men, women and children who were on board this flight. People, we were told this week, who have no chance of survival. Chandrika Sharma was heading to Mongolia via Beijing to attend a United Nations meeting on food and agriculture. The youngest passenger on the flight was 2 years old, the oldest 76. 7 of the passengers were under the age of 5. "26-year-old Yuan Chao was originally from Mongolia. He moved to study business at Hull University in England. He was travelling to see his girlfriend. Muktesh Mukherjee and his wife Xiao Mao Bao had been on a beach holiday together in Vietnam. Their 2 young sons were waiting for them at home. 15 different nationalities were flying to Beijing that night. Amongst them, 153 were from China, 38 from Malaysia, 5 Indians, 4 French, 3 from the US. 2 Iranians on board became initial suspects, but now seem to have been ruled out. 35-year-old Zhu Kun was a stuntman who was due to work on a new series for Netflix in Malaysia next week. He was on his way to Beijing to see his 2 young children. Bob and Kathy Lawton were from Springfield Lakes in Australia. They have 3 daughters. They are described as doting grandparents. Paul Weeks was a mechanical engineer. He left his wedding ring and watch behind at home when he travelled to Mongolia for work. Hadrian Watrelos on the right was 17, Zhao Yan on the left 18. They were on their way to school in Beijing. Families of the Chinese passengers accused Malaysian Airlines of withholding information and marched on the Malaysian embassy in the Chinese capital. There has been huge tension between the Chinese relatives and the airline.
I have children, I have brothers, I have family members, and I can imagine what they're going through. But I just want to say to the Chinese families that it's not just them that's lost or looking for lost members. Malaysians also have lost family members.
At every turn, the mystery of MH370 has defied simple explanation. The hope for the search crews at work over the vast expanses of the Indian Ocean is that they can finally locate the lost plane, providing answers for those who simply don't understand why so many questions remain unanswered 3 weeks on.
No matter what has been thrown and labelled at us, history will judge us as a country that has been very responsible. We have corroborated any evidence that we received. We have made sure that no stones are unturned. Notwithstanding many speculation in the earlier stages in the Southeast Asia or in the Malacca Straits or in the social media, we have not distracted from our main focus, which is to identify the plane.